Hi, I'm James Hansen and welcome to the HBD Chat. As you can see, we are social distancing, all of us in remote locations. Hope you're staying safe as well. Today, Dr. Harrison is joined by Parrot Behavior Consultant Hildegard Niemann, all the way from Germany. Dr. Harrison?
Good morning. Today we are privileged to be joined by Hildegard Niemann, who I learned at the AFA meeting loves to be called Hilla because her name's so difficult for Americans to pronounce. And at the AFA meeting, a friend of mine and a colleague in Germany asked us if we would be interested in supporting Hilla and her family as they came to AFA. I didn't realize that they've done this for 9 years, and maybe we can hear a little bit about that. But Hilla is a parrot behavior consultant, and she can tell us more about the certification on that. But she has her own parrot consulting business in Germany, Parrot Behavior Consulting, P.B.C. And this is a wonderful book, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Hilla, but isn't this a publication of your husband's?
This is the publication of my husband, yes, that's correct.
So you can see that we're not just dealing with Hilla, we're dealing with Reiner and her two lovely daughters. I've got the names here, Hilla. It's Miel, M-E-M-I-E-L, Miel?
Yeah, that comes from Spanish word for honey.
Oh, and Naomi, right?
Yes, and Naomi, yes, that's correct. She's the elder one.
And Hilla talks about how our behavior as people influence the behavior of birds, and that was her subject at AFA. And then Reiner was talking about, is it Reiner or Rainer?
Depends on your language. Well, we call him Reiner, but usually English-speaking people call him Rainer.
Okay. Well, he's a doctor, a biologist, and his subject at AFA was going green. That's why I thought maybe the room behind us here with Hilla was his design, but we learned that when we introduced her that this is her design. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Avifood, how you're doing these, I think I noticed in my notes you did 50 webinars in Germany in 2019 on a Sunday afternoon. Is that a thing you do with Avifoods every week?
No, we don't do webinars every week. We do them regularly once a month. Okay. And it's not the only thing that I do. I recommend Harrison a lot of times because when I meet birds and people in home, I see a lot of problem behavior. One of the main topics that I see is obesity, malnutrition, and problem behavior due to the case that people don't know how to reinforce behavior that they want to see in their birds. Because every reinforcer, every food that the bird desires is already in the bowl. So when you get chocolate every day, chocolate is not a desired reinforcer anymore. It's like something you eat every day. So, therefore I want healthy birds, thin birds, that respond to the owner very, very fast.
And then you would like set up individual consultations for people beside these seminars, right?
Yes. I visit them at home, or I do it via online consultation like this meeting that we have now, because they live all around the world and I can't travel to England or to France or somewhere else once or twice a week. That's too long.
Well, the reason we wanted to talk to you was we have so many people contact us on a regular basis at Harrison's Bird Foods about different behaviors that their birds have. And it's not something that someone like a veterinarian often has expertise to do. There's quite a few behaviors in the world now. And pretty much you're starting to join a single organization. Can you tell us what that is?
I joined the IAABC.
IAABC.
The International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, and I joined the IAABC, which is the International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators, and the APMA, which is the Association of Behavior Management Alliance. A lot of words. And all these experienced people work with behaviors and try to influence people to work with positive reinforcement training, which means that you need reinforcers. And this is where we start to work.
Well, when I first thought we had the ideal person to work with you, she had an African gray that's quite old and a blue and gold macaw that's also in its 40s, I believe. And the bird started biting her. And I thought, wow, this would be an excellent person to do this interview with. And she was a little reluctant to come on because she wasn't sure what this is all about. So that's why we're here. But the thing I noticed on her Facebook lately is she likes to put a piece of plastic down in the kitchen floor, and all the things from the table, pineapple, oranges, grapes, bananas, there must be 2 quarts of things thrown on that plastic in the middle of her kitchen, and the birds go down there and spend an hour in the morning while she's making breakfast or whatever. So I thought, wow, this is something Hilla will be glad to see, because there's no way we're going to teach that bird anything when it has everything it wants for 2 hours every morning.
You see, when an animal has got everything it needs, how would you tell the people, the animal, this is the behavior I want to see? Because there is no marker anymore. When you get chocolate every day, and I give you chocolate for a special behavior, you cannot decide which behavior was reinforced with that chocolate. So when a bird shows a special behavior, like sitting quietly on a perch, or preening, or playing with a toy, or something like that, I just can reinforce this behavior. When you've got a biting bird, the first thing is, when the bird bites, it's always reinforcing when you react. When you put your hand to a bird and it bites into your hand, and you take the hand away because it hurts, definitely, then taking the hand away is reinforcing for the bird, because biting worked. It didn't want the hand to get near the bird, so biting worked for the bird. This is reinforcing. When you want to stop biting, you need to reinforce other behaviors than biting. And therefore you need reinforcers. When you don't have reinforcers, how can the animal know that this behavior is more desired, more reinforcing than biting? That does not work. You cannot teach not biting. Not something that the animal can learn, but you can reinforce all the other behaviors, like playing, like preening, like stepping on the hand. All the other things can be reinforced, but not biting is not a behavior. So you cannot reinforce it.
I see. Well, I thought it was interesting that you were talking about how birds had to be healthy. If you're going to do this, they need to go through, you don't want to start a biting bird. Maybe it has arthritis, maybe it has some other issue than just the fact that it's not being communicated with. But once we solve those issues, make sure the bird is healthy. Yeah. Basically, when I first started working with behaviorists, Susan, I've forgotten her last name at the moment, but anyway, Susan wrote a chapter on it. It was so foreign about all the reinforcers and the different terminology. Basically, what we're basically learning now from you and other behaviors is we don't know how to talk to birds. We think, well, if we just love them, that's all they need. And I saw that in your introduction to AFA. Tell us about that. Why isn't love enough?
Well, it's like living with children. If you live with children and you love them, that's not enough. You have to educate them. You have to tell them how to live their lives so that they can live in a community. When a bird comes into your house and it's a young bird, it looks for guidance. So what can I do? What shall I do? Is it good when I do it? Do I get your attention when I do it? All this kind of stuff. And when the bird is older, usually they get 50, 40, 80 years old. They need more guidance from you, because then they are looking how they can live their lives happily in their homes. This is why I always recommend, when we've got problem behaviors, the first step is go to a vet. Because we've got a problem, the bird is biting, it's plucking, it's something else. And the first thing I want to know is it healthy? Is it in a good shape? Is everything fine? And when we know that there is no pain, then we can begin to work, and there is no obesity, because a lot of birds are too fat. And then we can educate them. A parrot can learn from year 1 till it's 80. It doesn't matter how old it is. It only depends on how you educate them. When they're younger, it's easier. That's correct, because there is no learning history in the past. Yeah, when they've made their first bad experiences with people, like shouting at them, hitting or something like else, or putting in another room where there is no other person, where they live in isolation, all this kind of stuff. This is a lot of bad experience with humans. So you've got a lot of learning history in front of your education.
So basically what we're saying then is that people don't know how to talk to their birds. They think that shouting is a communication. It is a communication, but it's telling the bird a negative experience. And so what I'm getting from you is that we need to learn that the bird wants certain things.
Yes.
And what are those things that the birds want?
I think the first thing is attention. Attention, company, getting some healthy, non-healthy, tasteful food, because birds don't eat healthy. If they could eat what they want, they would all be like a balloon. No, what they want, the first thing what they want is company and attention. And when they've got these things, this is why a lot of birds scream, because it's a learning history. It's like like variable reinforcement, because people no bird screams in the wild, despite umbrella cockatoos. They do this. But all the other birds don't scream in the wild. It's always a teached behavior. Usually a bird doesn't bite all day round in the wild, because biting would mean that I could get hurt in the wild. And being hurt means that I'm vulnerable and that I could die, because there are definitely no vets outside to help you when you are wounded. So all these behaviors are not natural behaviors from the beginning on. They are teached behaviors, or they are made behaviors like they're coming from experiences with humans.
Okay, so you're saying that a young bird is still plastic and doesn't have those bad experiences, but
no.
But the public is mainly dealing with birds now that are somewhere between, I would say, 8 to, like you say, maybe 80. And those birds are stuck in whatever behavior they learned from those people. And now they're giving them up in larger and larger numbers. And I think we need to give those people hope that if they would just change the language, which I think they don't understand, that what you're talking about is how do you create a language with your bird. And you do it by your presence. Do you love the bird when you walk in the room? Are you upset that the room is a mess? The bird knows that immediately, right? All of our communication with birds is not language, right?
Yeah, that's right. You see, birds are highly intelligent, and every parrot can read you like a book. You come into a room and he knows immediately if you are angry or if you're happy, if you've got headaches, or if you are in a hurry or something like that. When I come into my room and go to my African grey parrot Hope, and I'm in a bad mood, she wouldn't go to me. She wouldn't step on my hand. She would just say, "Oh, go, please, no, not in that mood. Don't do this." So I definitely don't ask her when I'm in a bad mood. The first thing that we need to understand is a bird can only change its behavior if the owner changes the behavior. The bird only responds to what it gets. So the first thing I need to do is to educate the owner that maybe talking to a parrot and moving all the time your hands in front of your body is very intimidating for the bird. Birds don't have arms, they don't have hands, they have wings, and usually, hopefully, they're on the back and not in front of the bird. So when you move all the time with your hands, wiggling around the bird is sitting there, "Oh my gosh, this is horrible, stop that. I can't do this anymore, please stop." And then when you move this hand in front of the bird, I would bite too, because it's horrible. This is the first thing. Keep your hands down, stay calm when you work with your bird. The next thing is, you know your species. When you work with an African grey, when you talk with a high-pitched voice, like, "Oh, you are a big bird, you are such beautiful, wonderful," the African grey is saying, "Yeah, yes, I'm wonderful, look how beautiful I am." If you do this to an Amazon or a macaw, he's sitting there, "Oh, yes, I am wonderful, let us fight a little bit," because they're highly aroused. And when you want to teach a behavior and you've got somebody who's so high in emotions, he cannot learn. It's like when you were 16 years old and you fell in love with the girl in the next classroom, and you need to do a math test, and you see her on the steps and she smiles at you, and afterwards you're writing the math test. You don't get an A. You get a B or C or D, but not an A, because your whole hormones are on the other side of the wall. You see what I mean? You
Yes.
cannot learn when you are high in emotions. You just need to calm down, you concentrate yourself, and then you can see what the other individual is teaching you. Therefore, the first thing that I need to do is to teach the owner how to behave in the presence of a bird that has got a problem.
And those South American birds have more temperamental issues than, say, an African gray.
Yes, a little bit.
Because that's probably the #1 biting bird in my experience that gets given up is when they get those hormones on the other side of the room, like they wanted to talk to that girl in the math test.
Yeah.
People don't realize what's going on there. That, oh, my baby doesn't love me. What did I do wrong? How do you control those hormones?
You control them with the food that you give them, because especially Amazons shouldn't get any fruits in the hormonal season when they're in mating season, because then it's a trigger for their hormones. Then fruits tell them, oh, wonderful, there's enough food, I can raise chicks during that time, and I don't want them to raise any chicks or get any eggs. So therefore, they are only on a maintenance diet. They can get vegetables and they can get the Harrisons or the other food, but not fruits during that time. And fruit is a reinforcer. So when I work with South American species, I usually take fruits as a reinforcer. Small pieces of grapes, small pieces of apple. When you only get apple during training, apple is wonderful. That's a really big, good treat, you see? And it's a healthy treat. And when they've got Harrisons in their bowls, they're usually not obese and they love to train for fruits. It's a wonderful basic diet when you need to teach a behavior. Therefore, I usually recommend when I've got problem birds or obese birds, the first thing I want to change is the diet. And it's not a problem for the bird. Usually it's a problem for the owner. Because the owner gets reinforced by a bird that is eating all the stuff that the owner is giving him.
Yeah, it's like giving your kid candy and think they love you when they ask for the second piece.
Yeah.
So the birds are asking for a second piece is more about their own selfish interest rather than what you're trying to accomplish, which is how can I talk to you? How can I tell you what I need? I want to know what you need, but I also want you to know I can't stand screaming. I can't stand. How do I control that? Right.
Yeah. That's the main reason why I usually tell the people, okay, look at this bird. The plumage is not in a good shape. There are stress bars and there are black spots in an Amazon plumage or red spots in African gray plumage. This is all not healthy. So the first thing is we change the diet to a healthier diet. And I want a diet that the bird eats that is totally sufficient for the bird. It gets all it needs.
So if you were just doing an interview right now and I had a bird on 60% seeds and 3 or 4 different types of commercial foods, and I had a lot of red feathers in my African gray. So will you help me change the diet? Give me some coaching on that. And secondly, how long before I change my diet and stuff do you want to actually start working on behavior in a bird like that?
Well, the first thing is I would explain why this is not healthy, why the plumage is not healthy for such a bird. And African grays usually live high in the trees, so they don't move on the ground despite when they are in the byes. And there they grab in mud because they need the calcium there. And then I ask the people, well, African grays don't have very much feathers in their head. Why? Because Amazons have feathers on their head, umbrella cockatoos have feathers on their head. A lot of birds that don't have feathers on their head eat food that is wet and that is like flesh. You see, it's all over their face. So an African gray in the wild doesn't eat any seed because seed grows on the ground, and there the bird doesn't live. So why do you feed your bird food that it doesn't eat in the wild? When we do this, we want to take food that is totally healthy for the bird, and where we can have a lot of reinforcers and where it cannot choose. You cannot choose from Harrison because every Harrison piece is like the other. It's always the same taste, always the same size, always the same color. You cannot choose from it. But every other thing is good. So when I change the diet, I tell the people, just put it in small pieces. Begin tomorrow, do it slowly. We don't want the bird to stay hungry. Hunger is always a reason for panic and for being afraid, and I don't want the bird to be afraid. We change it in a time for about 3 months. Just take your time.
3 months?
Slowly, yeah, 3 months, yes. And during that time, all the small sunflower seeds are little treats. And I put them in the fridge so they don't mold. And when I train my bird, I give a small plastic cup and I regulate and I say, okay, look here, we are coming with the sunflower seeds. We're training now. And then I slowly add other stuff like small pieces of grape or pomegranate or something like that. And I leave more sunflower seeds out. I always do it very, very slowly because I don't want any bird to panic that there's no food anymore.
And do you start this during the time that their diet's been changed? You can start training during that time?
Yeah.
Very good.
We always start immediately. Because usually when they see sunflowers, they work. And that's a nice beginning. And then you can change slowly, slowly, slowly from sunflower seeds to power trees or something like that.
I noticed that you kind of threw the cockatoos off on the side like they're a different creature completely from what we've been talking about. Tell me why they're such a challenge.
Cockatoos are cuddle for birds. Everybody wants to cuddle cockatoos. And I see a lot of problem behaviors, especially like screaming, biting, and feather destructive behavior. And a lot of people just cuddle them under the wings or at the back, and they don't realize that this is a zone in the body which is highly arousal for the bird. It's sexually sex dependent, so they want to bond with their human. And then they don't understand that they can't stay with their human because usually humans go to work, they've got family, all this kind of stuff. They defend their human, being aggressive against other people. And when you do this all year round, there is no mating season anymore. So they are sexually aroused all the time. And this is not normal for a body. And when they don't get what they want, when they don't understand that this human doesn't cuddle it anymore, they begin to help themselves. This is why they begin to pluck under their wings. They bite their feathers off. They just bite their wing feathers off. They mutilate in some cases, all this kind of stuff. So a lot of people treat them like little humans, but they are birds. And I always want them to, this is an animal, so treat an animal like an animal, but not like a human.
Right. And one of the worst things you could do in a case like you're talking about it, when you've got this bird all sexually aroused and you've been treating it incorrectly, and you go to a veterinarian that doesn't have a lot of experience with birds and he sees his feather picking, first thing he wants to do is stick a collar on that bird. Can you talk about that?
No, I only recommend collars when they bite themselves, when there's blood. Because I think when the real reason for this behavior is sexual arousal, then we need to treat the reason, not the bird. So the first thing is I would recommend is teach the owner, don't do this anymore, and do it slowly, not from one day to the other, because then this bird gets really highly frustrated. I don't want that. Just when you did this before we talked to each other 3 hours a day, just do it for 2 hours and 50 minutes. And then for a while, and then for 2 hours and 40 minutes. When we give this bird the collar and don't change anything else, and we put the collar off, then the same behavior will return. We haven't solved the problem so far. And then what we need to do is we need to teach the bird that there are other behaviors that are more reinforcing than this. And cockatoos are highly intellectual birds. Usually they don't know nothing. They cannot follow a target. They don't know how to turn around. They have got no intellectual experience. The only thing that they do is they destroy themselves and they destroy the furniture. And they destroy every companionship in the home. Because when you scream all the day around every other person in the house would say, well, get rid of this bird. I can't take it anymore.
How much hope can you give a person that has a screaming bird like that? Will it take a week, a month, to 3 months to change the diet? Do you know, did they notice an improvement in a week or two with a screaming bird?
Screaming is one of the heaviest problems in parrot behavior. You can better have a bird that is plucking or that is biting than a screaming bird, because screaming is stress, it's distress, and it makes persons aggressive, especially men. Well, women have children, and when the children screams for 3 hours, usually, you know, it screams because it's got stomach pain, or it's got ear pain or something like that, or it's got a tantrum or whatever else. You have to deal with this because you are the mother, you cannot go away. Well, men can go away, definitely. And usually the ears of men are very sensible to loud noises. So when a parrot screams, the man usually says nothing. He sits there quiet. When you're in a consultation because of screaming, or you have got a couple there, and the woman says, well, my husband says it's screaming, but it's not that loud. And the husband says nothing. He's only sitting there. And she says then, well, it's only for a few minutes a day. And he still says nothing. And then you ask the husband, do you feel the same? And he says, well, and she immediately says, well, it's not that loud. You see, he's not in the situation that he can tell, well, usually it hurts. I'm not feeling comfortable with the situation. And then I usually tell the woman, please, can he talk for himself? And then I ask him, does it hurt?
So now you're getting into human behavior, because
yeah, but that's it all about, because you cannot work with that person when she doesn't understand that other persons are hurt by this screaming.
and it's not normal for most men, at least in America, to say, oh, that poor, my ears, that this bird's driving, it's me, I'm hurting. He just, get that damn bird out of here.
Yeah, but a lot of men here do it. So the first thing is that we need to make sure that there is no pain in the human. Get earplugs. The first step, get earplugs. Yeah. And then when you've got a really screaming bird, it usually takes 6 weeks. And this 6 weeks, you cannot make things that are out of the training plan. It's difficult for me in English to explain it. You get a training plan, and if you do anything wrong in the training plan, you are back at the beginning.
So if you start the training plan, the bird screams, and for years, the way you stop the screaming is you took out your squirt gun and you squirt the bird. It keeps him quiet for maybe 5 minutes. So you're training with a new method, then all of a sudden the bird's screaming too much. You grab your squirt gun and you just erased your 3 weeks of training, right?
Yes. It will always happen that you've got an extinction outburst. Because when the screaming goes away and the bird knows usually screaming works, then it tries again from time to time. Does it work? Can I try it again? And when you then break in and go to the bird and say, shut up, then you begin at the beginning. Yeah? The extinction burst always comes usually after about 3 to 4 weeks. There are 1 or 2 days where it really shouts and screams. And then you have to be consistent in your training method. When you then respond, the bird will begin once again, every day.
Great.
That's the problem.
So negative really doesn't work in training birds. It probably doesn't work in animals. I was raised training a Doberman Pinscher with a choke collar, and I know that that's not the way to do it today, but I think a lot of people still think that you can reprimand a bird, and you call these things triggers, and these would be negative triggers, right?
Yes, that will be negative triggers for you, not for the bird, for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I think negative reinforcement is a training method, but it's not recommended in any situation. Because there are some things where I say, okay, negative reinforcement is necessary, because negative reinforcement means that you've got an aversive stimulus, which is responded by the bird with a special behavior. The problem with negative reinforcement is that there is no intention for the bird to do the behavior on its own, because it's reinforced on the other side, because you don't have a reinforcer when you work with negative reinforcement in the end. when you work with an aversive stimulus in the beginning, it's like when you're going to your car and you don't take your seatbelt on. And usually a car answers with this beep, beep, beep till you put your seatbelt on. And this is the aversive stimulus which leads to the behavior that you put your seatbelt on. Yeah, you are just showing that behavior, but you do nothing else. Yeah? You only put your seatbelt on, and you wouldn't do this if there wouldn't be that beep sound, because you're only going to the next bakery and getting some pretzels. That's only 5 minutes away, and it's nobody's on the street, so you don't put your seatbelt on. It's just a fast ride. And when you work with negative reinforcement, I only recommend it when you've got a behavior that is really a problem, like a bird that's gnawing on an electrical cord, or a bird that is biting a person and it's flighted. So when it really attacks somebody else, I tell the people, use a negative reinforcer that leads to the behavior that the bird flies to another spot and not to you, because at the moment I don't want anybody to get hurt, and every bite is reinforcing, every bite. But it's not a tool that I often use, only when I don't have no other choice.
And I think the other thing that's coming up for me is when you talk about positive reinforcers, that what you're using, you talk about a little bit of a grape. To the average aviculture owner or bird owner in the United States, a little bit of grape is 3 grapes. What is a little bit of grape to you? A little bit of seed, a little bit of your positive reinforcers. Are they 3 grapes, 7 sunflower seeds? How do you get the response you want without giving the whole what the bird wants?
Well, birds are highly intelligent, and I've learned that some birds starve the whole day, because at the end of the day there's a training session, and I eat all my treats and my food in the training session. I've seen that also.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The first thing is, it depends a little bit on the species, because when you've got cakes, they eat a lot of fruit. Or eclectus, they need a lot of fruit. They can get more grapes than other species, while Amazons should only get small pieces of grapes. So it depends a little bit on how fast the bird eats, what species it eats, and what it's got in its usual bowl. Usually when I've got those birds that I work most often with are blue-fronted Amazons and African greys. You put them in small pieces. When you've got 1 grape, you put it in 4 or 8 pieces. It depends a little bit on how big the grape is. You've got such big grapes and you've got such small grapes, and how good you can grab it, because you need to put it on between your fingers. And when it's a really small piece and you are working with a biting bird, I can tell you this can be really, really tricky. When you work with a biting bird, you always give the treats from above. That the bird makes the head high, because when they are sitting on the birch, they can't jump. And then they can bite. When you put it in front of you or there, then the bird can grab you. Okay, you can do this. But when you are above, the bird cannot bite you, and you can move away when you see that it's getting aggressive. It depends all on the behavior of the owner. If the owner is experienced or is taught how to behave, then a lot of problem behaviors go away.
Oh. What would be the next subject you would like to let an American, since you're doing so many of these educational things in Germany, we're way behind you. I noticed that your daughters are involved with some of the AFA children's work, but you're doing a lot of children's work in Europe too, I understand.
No, we are not doing a lot of children work here, because first thing is, it's a hobby for my daughters.
Oh, okay.
They attend us, but they are not really biologists. The one is going to be a teacher, and the other is going to be a lawyer. So they love their birds and their animals really, and they love to work with children, but it's not what they usually do in their daily work. They are both at the university now. What we do is here we educate nearly everybody, but the youth is not so interested. We've got lots of young owners, but not children. And personally, I would recommend that when you've grown up with birds, it's fine. A bird is not an animal for a child that has got no experience and the parents have got no experience. You see, a budgie is not a cuddling animal. A budgie is a highly intelligent bird, and it's very, very fast. So what I would recommend is when you are interested in birds, get your kids to bird parks, to bird conventions, all this kind of stuff. And when all the family wants a bird, everybody, then get your family a bird. And then the child can grow up with a bird. When the parents are not for a bird, then it's not a good idea to get a bird, because the child cannot be responsible for such a highly intelligent animal.
And what would you recommend for a starting bird? A bird that's been raised with parent birds, a bird that's been hand-fed, a bird that's in a rescue facility with all kinds of behavior issues?
My personal belief is when you should have a bird, the bird will find you. I never wanted an African grey because I know how highly intelligent they are and how manipulative they can. And then suddenly I got an email from a client and he said, well, there's this African grey and nobody wants her. And she looks so different from all the other birds. And I said, well, I saw this bird and I said, okay, 2 years, not more, because she's in such a bad shape. She will die in the next 24 months. Now she lived with us for, I think, 6 years, and there is no end to be seen. She will stay with us for the rest of our life, I believe. And no, she's wonderful. She's a rescue, and I never wanted her, but I really love her. She's a wonderful bird.
She's the bird that her legs are all crippled. She can't even really stand, right?
Yeah, she's a rachitis, I think is the English word. When you've got calcium deficiency when you grow up.
Yeah, osteoporosis and
Yeah, I don't know the English word at the moment.
Calcium deficiencies and all that.
Yeah. She's totally crippled. She can't fly. She can't open her wings. And we made an X-ray from her, and there's not a correct bone in her whole body, despite her head, which is really good functioning.
You wouldn't start with a bird like that, right? What would your ideal bird for? When the whole family says, yes, we want a bird, but dad wants a macaw, the kid wants a parakeet. Do you want a parent-raised bird, a bird that was hand-fed? I think hand-fed birds made a little bit of a problem for a lot of people because they would adopt to, say they were hand-raised by a woman and they come into a family, the chances of them adopting those other people aren't that great.
Well, I think it doesn't matter who raises the bird. The behavior is learned from the moment the bird leaves the nest till the moment when it leaves its parents in the wild. So let us take an African grey as an example. African greys usually leave the nest when they're about 2.5 or 3 months old. And then they stay with their parents till they are about 1 year old, when the eyes are getting yellow, when they get their adult plumage. And during these 9 months, they learn all the behaviors that they should learn when they are an African grey. So when you put an African grey baby during this time into a home with only humans, it surely looks at the human to learn behavior. But when you put it in a group with other African greys, it looks at all the other African greys. And it doesn't matter who fed the bird before when it was in the nest, because in the nest it's dark. There is no lamp, no light. Nobody tells how an African grey looks like. So it doesn't matter who puts the food into the beak. But when it comes out, it learns behavior. And this behavior should be taught by another bird. So what I recommend is that you can hand feed the bird. It should know humans as friendly, as nice, as a companion, but it should learn the behavior of an African grey parrot. So therefore, the socialization should be in a group for an African grey parrot. And after about 10 months, you can go into this group and the bird will choose you, because a bird knows who the owner should be. You don't choose the bird chooses you. And
I see. Yeah, you said that earlier, and I wondered exactly how that would happen. But if you had a group of birds that are learning how to fly and learning how to be birds, and you walk in there, and all of a sudden one lands on you, you got your bird. I understand. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And what about a bird that is in a rescue facility? Who should adopt those birds?
I think when you want a bird from a rescue facility, the first thing you should do is visit the bird. Visit often, play with the bird, see how the bird responds to you. If it's looking forward to see you, usually when a bird wants you, you come in and it says, woo, or something else to get your attention. When it doesn't respond to you as a person, it's not your bird. And I think it's a chemical thing, because you see this bird and you like it, and the bird likes you, and you say, you only think about this bird. You go home and you think, well, where should I put the aviary? Would it like the toy? Maybe when I do this and this, would it like that? Does it like the music? Does it like the TV show I'm looking? All this kind of stuff. Your whole brain begins to circle around this bird. And then you know that you should take this bird home, because when you are not with the bird, you think, what is he now doing? Is he eating well? Is he ill? I haven't heard of him. Well, I need to visit him next week to see how he feels. Has he got enough toys? Oh, I bring him this toy. I go into the next shop and I bring him a toy. When I visit the bird, I will bring him a new toy and I play with the bird. Can I train with the bird? How can I train with the bird? Your whole brain is circling about this bird, and now you are ready to bring this bird home.
Fantastic. One of the problems that we're seeing so common, at least in the newspapers, is called hoarding, where people have 200-300 birds. They're housed terribly. They call themselves rescue facilities. That must be another part of choosing a bird. How do you know a place is doing right by birds, that you don't want to just walk in for a place where they're not being treated right? I mean, can you expand a little bit on what I'm thinking about it?
Well, the first thing is about the hygiene. If it's clean. I don't want any poops lying around or something like that, and I want clean perches. And if there's any dust or any dirt on the ground or in the cages, then there are too many birds. This is the first thing. Then if they are only sitting in small cages, well, you cannot let them fly all around. When they've got 10 birds in one room, and every bird gets 1 hour of free flight to just exercise a little bit, then you've got 10 hours in which you have to stay in the room because this bird is flighted, and then you put it in the cage and let the other one around, and you have to cover all the other cages, because one of the most one of the things that the bird love most is go on the cages and bite other birds in the feet. That's a big sport. It doesn't matter who it is. It's just nice to see how it screams. So dirt and free flight is one of the things. Then, are there toys? Are they in a good shape? Do they know their birds? And how many persons are caring for the birds? So when there's only one person and there are 60 birds, and this person doesn't sleep, well, that's fine. I usually need 6 to 8 hours sleep a night, and then I'm fit. But I don't have 20 birds. I only have 4 at the moment, and I'm happy with that. And all the cages are clean. So I think when we've got a facility where there are a lot of birds and it's a rescue center, there should always be a staff. A lot of people who clean, who care, and who train with the bird, and who do fostering with the birds, who educate the birds, who see that there are problem behaviors and that these problem behaviors are dealt with. When I've got a biting bird and nobody works with the biting bird, how should the bird learn other behaviors than biting? How could it ever get good experiences, positive experiences with humans when nobody's got time to care for that?
So if you walked into a facility like that and there's a bird cowering over in the corner with feather picking and all kinds of problems, that should warn you not to feel sorry for the bird and adopt it, but that you need to move on to another place rather than be a victim of your emotions.
Yeah, the problem is in that case, you always feel overwhelmed by these emotions. You want to take care for this bird. I understand that. I think in that situation, you should just talk to this owner of this facility and then see if it's really a good facility, and if not, then take action to just help all the birds, not only this one there in the corner, but all the birds in the facility, because there's something definitely going wrong there.
One of the things that we as a company get frequent calls by owners is my echolactus is toe tapping. Mm-hmm. Can you give us your intake on what you think that means?
Well, eclectus have got the longest stomach, I think is the English word, in all parrots, and they depend on fruits in the wild. Usually Female eclectos sit in the nest for 10 to 11 months, and the males, usually 5 to 6, fly away eating. They are like a food bowl that's flying, and yeah, they simply eat more than they need because they need to feed all the females. So the females don't exercise very much. They all need a nest. That's really, really important, because when they don't have a nest where they can crawl in, they feel unhappy. And usually a lot of female eclectus owners give their birds a nest where they can stay in. They need a dark hole where they can stay.
So you're talking about giving a nest to a pet bird?
When you don't give them a nest, they often pluck. That's the problem, because this is the usual behavior. Yeah, this is what they want to do. Female eclectus lay eggs. This is what they only care for. If they don't have a dark hole or a hole where they can just go into, then they begin to pluck. What you can do is you give them a box and you put some wood in, but you open it from the front. That's nice for them to just work in and gnaw in, but it's not that dark. You see? Yep. If you don't give them something where they can stay in, where they can work, they feel unhappy. And you need to exercise the males, and you need to give them 50% for fruits and fresh things. And they are highly sensitive to artificial vitamin A, I was told.
Right.
So you have to be really careful about that. And this is definitely not normal behavior, because toe tapping and wing flapping cannot be controlled by the body. The birds do it in such an intensity that they can't sleep. They're highly exhausted, and they do it even in their sleep, when they feel asleep, because they cannot stay awake anymore. And you see still the food grabbing all the time. Tap, 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 or wing flapping, one wing, one wing, one wing, one wing. They can't stop it. And this is not a normal behavior.
No, that's not normal.
That doesn't work. I think they are very vulnerable to stress, more than other birds. So I wouldn't have these birds with young children, with a barking dog or something like that, or young people who are techno music all the day. All this stuff I wouldn't do with an eclectus. If you want to hear techno, take an Amazon or a cockatoo, but not an eclectus or not an African grey. African greys love Mozart and Parrot.
Laura Desborough?
Yeah, I know her.
Isn't she a big eclectus person?
Yes, definitely. I talked to her at AFA, and we had a conversation, and she wrote an article for the journal my husband is making, and she really uses fresh fruit for the eclectus. And she uses seeds, but she sprouts them.
Uh-huh.
And they are doing fine, but she's got a really big facility. The maids can fly there a lot, and I think they can burn off a lot of their energy. One of the main reasons why the male eclectus might be so vulnerable to stress might be that they don't have enough exercise. Remember, when they fly in the wild, they fly 60 to 100 kilometers a day. And when even if you chase them around in your home the whole day, you won't even get a kilometer or 1,000 meters for male eclectus, never in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Maybe we can contact her and see what she would have to say about that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. She's an expert in that. I just want to show you. Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to show you the case of Coco. This was Coco when I met her. She's a female African grey, and when I met her, she was looking like that, and she was depressed. She was living with another female, and the other female was a really, really big bird. At first, I thought, my dear, this must be a male, because it's the biggest African grey I've ever seen. She was 600 grams. Wow. And she was on a table, she was playing, and this bird was sitting on the door, and it was taking its back on us, and didn't even look at us. And she was very small and very shy, and she didn't respond. And then I told the owner, well, with this food she was eating was on a seed diet and had no reinforcers, we just changed her to Harrison's, and then we trained with her. In the beginning, she didn't respond to the training, and after that, she found training very funny and very interesting, and she was better in training than the other bird. We changed the diet, we changed the keeping, and she got 2 males. And before she got the 2 males, I got a video, and these are Coco and Phoenix. These are both birds.
That's the same bird you just showed us?
Yeah, and one of the birds is Phoenix. And now you can tell me which one is Phoenix. And it's Coco.
I'm going to guess it's the one on the left, on the right.
This one is Coco?
Yes. The bird that was so terrible before, and the smaller bird?
No, this one is Coco.
Really? Amazing.
Yes, this one is Coco. Now she's fully feathered, and she is much better in training than the other bird. She's eager to train. She responds better to the training. And when you train both birds, she usually pushes Phoenix away because she wants to train more. And this is what I found with a lot of packing birds, that they are intellectually not stimulated. They want to train, they learn faster, and if you work with them, they are really, really eager to train. There was another bird named Chili. He was a parrotlet. Let me share my screen again, just let me look for the picture. And this here is Chili at the beginning of the training and now.
Wow.
And this is what you can do with the right reinforcers, with the right training.
Excellent.
Yeah. So when you need reinforcers and you want to train with a bird and the bird doesn't respond, just work on the food, work on the reinforcers, and begin a training. And you can do wonders if you really work consistent with your bird and if you change your own behavior.
So we'd like to invite anyone who watches this video, if you're a HBD customer, we'd like to offer at least 10 of our customers who have not some extremely complex issues to start out with, but just some simple things you'd like to have Hilda help you with on some projects. We're willing to video those with her, and so we can share this with our customers when they call and say, what do I do with this? What do I do with that? It's out of our expertise, and we're so happy she's willing to do this for us. Thank you, Hilda, for that enlightening conversation today. We look forward to having many more subjects about behavior and owning and caring for our pet birds. And thank you for watching us today, and look forward to hearing from you on comments that you would like to hear us perform on the chats. Until then, stay safe, and here we go.
Thanks for tuning in to the HBD Chat, a production of HBD International Inc., Harrison's Bird Foods, and Wild Wings Organic Wild Bird Foods. We're always looking for interesting guests and new topics to discuss. We'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts about this podcast. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel.